Hi guys, my name is Braden Howard, and today I'll be speaking to you guys about France and kind of what to expect whenever we go on the trip as a business meeting over there to France, and figuring out kind of type of stuff that we'll have to deal with there, such as like the values that they have, how they introduce themselves, the gathering guidelines, and I'd say a couple other things that will kind of benefit us in how we interact with them over there. So, the first thing that you always do whenever you're meeting somebody new is to introduce yourself. The typical introduction in France is actually called la bise, which is being exampled right here. So typically in la bise, they have a kiss on each cheek. So each cheek, and then in the business world, that is how you greet women, typically, especially over there in France. So you greet women with la bise, but another man or just any general business meeting, typically you'll do just a firm handshake. And that will be a great introduction, and this is typically the best way to introduce yourself to any new person. It'll show you're respectful, and to the way they introduce themselves, that's how you want to start off an introduction. The next thing is the gathering guidelines. So when gathering guidelines, you'll typically show up, like in the US, you'll typically show up right around on time, but in France, it is actually considered rude to show up right on time. The reason behind that is because you'll see people, the host especially, they'll be touching up stuff last second, and if you show up right on time, you're going to be intruding on them doing that right there. So they'll show up 15 minutes late to kind of give them that time to still do that and still be respectful to the host. But if you show up any minutes past 15, then it is extremely rude and you're just showing straight disrespect to the host. Well, I'll say 15 minutes is the perfect time, but that is the latest you can show up late. If you show up 10 to 15, that's a perfect gap right there. Anything later, it is showing disrespect to the host. Alright, so language differences. Over here in the United States, we speak English. That is the most common language over here in the United States and in certain other countries. Over there in France, the most common language over there is French. The reason they speak French, that's just their native homeland speaking. So, speaking French, it's kind of hard whenever us United States people, we go over there and try to make a negotiation deal, and if they only speak French, it can be tough to get a good deal done. So that's why we'll bring a translator along. So the translator will help us get in straight communication with them and be able to communicate directly and know exactly what each other want. If for some reason we don't have a translator and try to still do a business deal, it can lead to us getting something that we didn't want or them getting something that they don't want. And it can lead to a bunch of big mishaps, and it can cost both companies a lot of money. And that's something we don't want to do. So that's why having somebody in your business that can speak both languages or just speak a bunch of different languages can help you out in many business deals. So whenever you're speaking French and translators, that's why we're bringing a translator with us, or they'll also have one there. That's typically how it goes in business meetings. Whenever you're meeting somebody from a different country, you'll have a translator help each person understand exactly what is needed by both sides. The next thing is France's values. They value a lot about how they treat one another. So typically, if you run into people in France, they will treat you with the utmost respect and give you the introduction that they typically do, which is la bise, which is the kiss on each cheek, and also a firm handshake, I'll say. So whenever you first introduce one another, like, you want to be very utmost respectful, because I'll say it's just the right thing to do, and that's typically what they value the most over there in France, is how they interact with one another, the way they treat each other. If they're being disrespectful, and it could destroy all their values. That's why they also have the gathering guidelines, which is showing up 15 minutes later, so that way you're very respectful and to the host and to everybody else involved. Everything they do over there is to be the utmost respectful to one another. And that's another thing in business too. So if any business meeting, you want to be very respectful to any new person that's coming in. Say you want to be doing a firm handshake or doing whatever is custom to their country, I'd say. So be respectful throughout all times, and that will be fun. Alright, so in conclusion here, we went over the introductions. La bise, and then a firm handshake. That is typically what they do in most business standards and just in real life outside of business. And also for the guidelines for gatherings. So in the gathering guidelines, we basically talked about how you always show up 15 minutes later to show the utmost respect to the host, and that is a big value there in France, which also goes to the France's values. So about to say that's what they value the absolute most is how they treat one another and being the utmost respectful. So then you also talk about language differences. I'll say so it's always hard to understand one another whenever you don't speak the same language. So bringing on a translator or just being able to speak multiple languages will help a lot in business. I'll say so whenever we go over there, we'll be able to introduce ourselves correctly. Also, we'll be able to understand the guidelines for the gatherings. So like whenever we go to a meeting, we know the exact amount of when to show up and how to be respectful to one another. Language differences. So whenever we're there, we'll have a translator. They'll also have a translator possibly to help us out. And we'll also all make deals correctly to get everything organized and set up perfectly to how we both want it. And then we know how they want to treat us and what they value the most. So we will do our very best to show them how we want to be respected and how we respect them. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and good night.